playingguitar.org. I'm Wes Carr, and today we're going to talk a little bit about your power chords, or your fifth chords, some people will call them, and we're going to talk a little bit about octaves, and how to use them a little bit in your playing. Now in general, when we think of power chords as chords, but the truth is they're not. They're actually intervals. A chord is composed of 3 individual notes. A basic chord will generally have the first note of a scale, the 3rd note of a scale, and the 5th note of a scale. If it's a minor chord, you'll flatten the 3rd. Now a power chord, or a 5th chord, they have the first note of a scale and the 5th note of a scale. Sometimes they'll have the octave. But you notice you're missing the 3rd, and the octave counts as the first, or the same note. So in the case of like the A5 or the A power chord, you'll notice that I have an A, an E, and an A. So I mean, it's not necessarily a bad thing that they're missing notes. It just means that it serves a specific purpose. Most often you'll hear these chords played with the electric guitar, simply because when you have an amp and you have effects and distortion, depending on how high those effects are, or that distortion is, having too many different notes can make the chord sound muddy, and it doesn't always sound the best. So what we do is we simplify the chord and we kind of break it down and make it more palatable while it runs through the amp. Another common reason people would use it is it offers a lot more options to the lead player. Now, like I said before, if you have a chord, you have the 1st, 3rd, and 5th. If that 3rd is normal, then you have the major chord. If you flatten it, you have the minor. So if you have no 3rd, there's nothing to tell you whether or not the chord is major or minor. So the lead player is free to play, in the case of A, he could play A major or A minor, or a combination of both scales. He has a lot of freedom to play. So the power chords are actually pretty simple. They're completely movable shapes. They're very, very easy to understand. Basically, we're going to start with the A5, and we're just going to move it around a bit and talk a little bit. So you're going to take your 1st finger and place that on the 5th fret of the A string. You're going to take your 3rd finger and place it on the 7th fret. I'm sorry, the 1st finger on the 5th fret of the E string, your 3rd finger on the 7th fret of the A string. And that will give you your basic 5th. Now some people will have a lot of trouble playing with their ring finger in this kind of a distance, so they'll try to use their 4th finger instead. Now that's okay, but you're kind of limited. You can't then get your octave in. So really, really try to use your 3rd finger. If you can't, go ahead and use your 4th finger instead. So once we have those 2 notes in place, we're going to take our 4th finger and we're going to place it on the 7th fret of the D string. And that's where we get our octave. And you can hear it's a little bit of a heavier sound, and you can see I can keep this shape in any different spot. I can move it here, it becomes a G5, A5, B5, C5. And this shape also works the next strings over: C5, D5, E5, F5. Now a lot of people, especially if they're playing electric guitar, they'll palm mute these chords to try to get a little bit more of an aggressive tone out of it. Now a palm mute, you literally will take the side of your hand and you're going to place it as close to your saddle as you can. In the case of an electric guitar, that would be the metal pieces. Now you don't want to be on before it, and you don't want to be too far up, because you won't get any sound. You want to be right on top, and you can hear you have a well-defined note that's just a little bit more subdued. can be a little tricky to get used to at first. The most important aspect of these chords is getting used to moving them. So you're going to want to, a good exercise is just take your G5 on the 3rd fret, A5 on the 5th fret, B5 on the 7th fret, and C5 on the 8th fret. And just move that up and down. You can make whatever rhythm you want with that. Just make sure that you're making good, clean movements. Now, another common interval shape that a lot of players like to use is the octave. Once again, it empties out the note a little bit. And one of the nice pieces about the octave is that it's great for lead playing. If you want to have some kind of chord sounds in your lead playing, you don't want to go through all the work of figuring out an entire chord melody. So all that we're doing here is we're taking our power chord and we're taking the 4th finger out. And you want to make sure that you're muting the middle string with your pointer finger. Have it just kind of rest over a little bit. You can do the same exercise. Now you'll see a lot of jazz players using octaves, especially on your higher strings, your treble strings, for melody playing. This one can be a little trickier. Instead of having having 1 fret in between, you'll have 2. So here, I'm going to play an octave on my G string, so that'll be the 5th fret of my D string, and the 8th fret of my B string. And I'm going to do the same exercise there. So 3, 5, 7, 8, 8, 7, 5, 3. And when I go to my the octave starting on my G string here, my G and E string, is the same shape. 3, 5, 7, 8, 7, 5, 3. Well, there's some more chords for you. The power chords, especially if you're an electric player. The octaves for some of your more interesting lead playing. And you do want to get used to, when you're moving, make sure you're not moving 1 finger at a time. Try to keep it in one good, clean shape. Well, good luck and happy picking.